to Inside Transportation, presented by the King County Department of Transportation in conjunction with KCTV. I'm Matt Reichmann. Thanks for joining us. Well, it's been about 2 years in the making. King County Metro and Sound Transit closed the downtown Seattle Transit Tunnel in September of 2005 so that Sound Transit could retrofit for light rail and Metro could make long overdue repairs and improvements. The tunnel is scheduled to reopen in September, and it has been a massive effort on the part of ST, Metro, and the City of Seattle to keep traffic flowing downtown in the absence of tunnel access. It's been nearly 2 years, and now the wait is nearly over. The downtown Seattle Transit Tunnel closed in September of 2005 so that Sound Transit could retrofit the transit corridor for light rail train service and upgrade many of the operating systems in the tunnel. The tunnel's closing presented a tremendous challenge to its users. What to do with the 20 Metro bus routes and one Sound Transit bus route that traveled the tunnel 6 days a week, and how to minimize the impact on traffic downtown during the morning and afternoon commutes. In essence, how to keep everyone moving in downtown Seattle during the 2 years the tunnel would be closed. Metro, along with the City of Seattle, Sound Transit, and Community Transit, also invested $16 million into surface improvements on 3rd to further reduce congestion. One of the key solutions was creating a transit priority corridor on 3rd Avenue. During peak weekday commute periods, 3rd is restricted to transit buses allowing faster travel. Motorists have unlimited access for the other 18 hours. A report monitoring transit performance during the tunnel closure found recent bus travel times on downtown surface streets have improved by 26% compared to before the tunnel closure. The transit priority corridor has been such a success that it will continue to serve as one after bus service returns to the tunnel.
When the tunnel reopens in September, most of the routes that were in the tunnel before it closed back in 2005 will return. Not every route will go in, however, and the reason for that is that Metro wanted to set aside some capacity for future growth and also to accommodate Sound Transit's Link Light Rail when that begins operating in the tunnel in sometime in 2009. So whereas before the tunnel closed in 2005 we had 21 routes operating in the tunnel, when it reopens this September there will be 18 routes operating in the tunnel, and several of the peak-only routes will remain on their current surface streets, primarily 2nd and 4th Avenues. Now, when the tunnel does reopen in this September, many routes are coming off of 3rd and moving back in the tunnel, and that frees up quite a bit of capacity for buses on 3rd Avenue. So the other major change in downtown is going to be a number of surface bus routes in downtown Seattle shifting over to 3rd Avenue. Up to 21 routes will be moving to 3rd Avenue this September, and the reason for that is to operate them on 3rd Avenue and take advantage of the continued transit priority measures and just the faster speed on 3rd Avenue operating through downtown Seattle, which is better than on any other surface street. So there will be about 21 routes that will shift over in September. And that will also help reduce some of the congestion on other streets such as 2nd, 4th Avenue, 5th Avenue, even 1st Avenue.
In addition to preparing for Sound Transit's light rail service scheduled to begin in 2009, the closure presented an opportunity to make upgrades and improvements to the tunnel. These improvements included the installation of additional monitoring cameras, new signage, and the addition of emergency telephones. One improvement that will also require some attention on the part of riders are these strips that identify areas where people need to stand back to avoid the buses moving through the tunnel. In order to accommodate light rail, the roadway was lowered by a foot, meaning bus mirrors will be a foot lower too. These yellow strips have been placed along the roadways to show passengers what distance to keep away from the moving coaches. Coordinating the countless details of tunnel construction, bus service planning, and surface street changes has been a massive team effort requiring strong partnerships between all the agencies involved.
When we closed the tunnel a couple of years ago, we worked with Sound Transit, Metro Transit, Pierce Transit, Community Transit, all worked together along with the City of Seattle to make sure that transition was smooth. Well, now we're a few weeks ahead of when the tunnel reopens in September, and we're looking for that great cooperation. It's there, and I just want to say everybody's doing great work together.
Once the tunnel does reopen, it will signify not only the strong partnerships and teamwork involved, but also a commitment from Metro and its partners to create an integrated transportation asset.
By 2009, when Link Light Rail starts operating, we'll be the only system in the United States where we'll have a joint operation of both ongoing revenue bus service and ongoing revenue train service in one tunnel operating along the same right-of-way. This is an innovative and unique operation, which just goes to show King County and Sound Transit being on the edge, the cutting edge of transit technology. We believe that we'll be able to carry thousands of passengers a day through this tunnel in both rail and bus, serving the needs of everyone here in King County.
For more information on the tunnel reopening, visit Metro Online and click on Tunnel Reopening. 18 bus routes will return to the tunnel when it reopens, and light rail service is expected to begin in 2009. And speaking of outstanding efforts of Metro employees, the agency has honored its Operator of the Year for 2006, and you could say the current honoree is a bit of a know-it-all. He's been with Metro for almost 30 years and reports every day not knowing what route he'll drive. His name is Pat Kalman. Here now a look at his ceremony as well as this year's rodeo competition, won by another Metro operator, Michael Grady. He represents the best King County Metro Transit has to offer, and for the next year, Pat Kalman will be recognized for it. Pat is Metro's Operator of the Year for 2006, and with good reason. He's been an operator at Metro for 27 years and as of April 2007 has posted a 25-year safe driving record. Pat's current position is what's called report operator. That means he shows up every day not knowing what route he'll drive to fill any unexpected hole in the bus driving schedule caused by another driver's illness or unexpected absence. But whatever it ends up being day to day, Pat's always reliable and rider-oriented.
It's one thing to drive a bus and to do a really good job of driving a bus, and certainly he does that. But Pat is somebody who's involved in a lot of different things, who takes the time to be in a security committee or with MetroFit or whatever needs to be done around the base. Pat's there, and he has the concern about the job and about what's going on with his fellow operators to show up, represent them, and do an excellent job in that area.
The Operator of the Year award goes to the operator who demonstrates safe driving skills, exceptional customer service, and outstanding overall work record. The operator must be chosen as Operator of the Month at one of the 7 transit bases, and then must be selected for the annual award by fellow Operators of the Month.
You know, you guys, it's because of you we have a job. It's because of our fine operators out there, and I think while this year you're the Operator of the Year chosen by your peers, I know that you're representing thousands of fine employees who go out every single day and do us proud and do the citizens of King County proud.
Pat has repeatedly been a valuable source of assistance, and his willingness to help out is a tribute to his professionalism. Another one, I was greatly impressed by this operator's actions as he recognized the basic nature of the shuttle route and strove to improve on it as to cover nearly every zone possible that was missed as a result of a blockage.
And what's the recipe to achieve the pinnacle of Metro's operating awards?
A lot of patience. You can't. When I first started, I thought I was going to teach everybody how to be a good bus rider. And I found out there were a lot more of them than there is of me. So I had to fold that one back and just let people do whatever they are inclined to do and then try to pick up the pieces.
Pat's tremendous work ethic does have one critic. Metro managers say his wife Lynn laments the fact that he lives at the base and just visits her. Something they say is bad for her, but good for Metro. And speaking of operators winning awards, the 31st annual Metro Rodeo is in the books, and it was a familiar face accepting the award in the operator division on June 16th. Michael Grady came out on top in the competition for the 6th time in his career. He beat out second place winner Tammy Klein and third place winner Mel Nason. Ryan Stringfellow took home the award in the Maverick division. The rodeo tests the current skills and knowledge of Metro drivers, as well as encourages continued mastery of all aspects of operating a coach. Michael Grady will now move on to compete in the State Rodeo August 19th and the APTA International Bus Rodeo next May. Well, we head to our first break, and coming up, we hit the road and talk to an engineer about what drivers need to keep in mind to be safe as they travel through this summer's construction zones. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Well, they're pretty much inevitable if you travel by car, especially this time of year. Construction work zones are all over the place in King County during the summer season, and with workers standing just off the roadway, they're in harm's way pretty much all the time. We recently visited a construction zone at Military Road in South 272nd Street to talk to engineer Victor Daggs with the Road Services Division about how to stay safe while driving through. Well, we're here today at the intersection of Military Road and South 272nd. I'm here with King County resident engineer Victor Daggs. Thanks for joining us, first of all.
No problem.
Victor. Well, I guess the first thing that we need to point out is that with all the work that people have been seeing as you drive around King County, it's really everywhere. There's a lot of work going on. People are going to have to deal with it sooner or later. What are some of the things that people need to keep in mind for, I guess, their own safety and for the safety of the workers that are in the zone?
Yeah, well, a lot of times you're going to have workers that are out here in those construction zones that are paying attention to the work and not necessarily the traffic. So the slower the traffic can go through the area and the awareness that there are people out here working would help out a lot in the conditions out here. Also, the fact that there's going to be a lot of obstacles, cones, traffic barrels, maybe irregularities in the roadway that they're probably going to need to slow the pace down and slow their vehicles down just so they can make sure they can accommodate any of the changes in the roadway conditions.
And I mean, do you think that people are always totally mindful of how dangerous it can be? We know there have been a couple of deaths recently in construction zones, so I guess it's good for people to bear in mind that it can be very dangerous for the workers.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. There has been a lot more incidents, and I think just with the fact of people, a lot of times, especially the morning commute where people are trying to get to work, a lot of people on cell phones these days, just not really paying attention and aware of what's going on actually on the road I think attributes a lot to some of those problems that we've been having lately.
Well, yeah,
So,
I was going to say, you mentioned people getting to work and stuff like that. Is it basically just impatience that's driving this, if you'll pardon the pun?
yeah, I think it's impatience and just a lot of people get on a routine, because I know I've had times where I've just kind of driven on my way to work or home from work, where you just get in that routine and you just kind of get on mental cruise control. And I think a lot of that may contribute to some of those problems that we've been having.
And so And so, I mean, what is, I guess, the best advisable thing? I mean, we know people need to be patient, but I guess also they could probably just try to avoid these by maybe going on the internet and seeing where the sites are.
Yeah, and finding alternate routes would be one. And then also when you see some of the construction cones and barrels and signing, just kind of heighten your awareness of the fact that you are going through a construction zone.
And as you were mentioning earlier, Victor, there are a lot of things, I can see someone driving by right now on a cell phone, a lot of things that nowadays that take people's attention off the road, and that can be, very dangerous considering, how intimate it is in this setting with the cars and the workers.
Yeah, very dangerous, because as you can see, I mean, basically you've got a 2-foot plastic cone that's going to stop a vehicle from entering into a work zone where you have somebody that may not be protected by anything concrete, a concrete barrier. So basically, they're vulnerable.
Got a ladder over there.
Right, exactly. So he's vulnerable. If someone was to get out of control, that person, could be a fatality. Yeah. And I think a lot of the fatalities lately have been attributed to that, where someone just got out of the delineated area, got into a work zone, and no one's, the workers are there to work. They're not there to kind of watch traffic. Right. So a lot of times their attention is on the work and not the traffic, and that's how the fatalities can happen. So motorists, be aware that you are in a situation when you're going through a construction zone that there are people there working that could be injured by you misnegotiating a route or not paying attention. So be aware.
So you take a look at the gear that we have on today, and you can see that the hard hat might help out a little bit, but this vest obviously isn't going to help out very much at all. It's very thin, and it's more just kind of for visibility to make them aware of the workers.
Correct. So and a lot of times, when we do night work, we have to wear all white. So basically, the protective equipment that we've got is basically so that the motorist or anybody traveling through can see the actual workers out there. Our hard hats provide, like you said, minimal protection. Vests, absolutely no protection. It's all strictly visible, a visual aid. Same thing with the cones, and then you'll see that one is out, and that will be pulled off the road at the end of the day. But we also have the flashing lights that are on top of the barrels. You have reflectorized tape on the cones. All of these are aids, so the motoring public traveling through a construction work zone can get a visual guide through where they need to go through and kind of keep them aware of their surroundings.
So the last thing that we should touch on, Victor, is that basically we're all working towards the same end, which is a faster commute. And you as an engineer and the workers all know that you are inconveniencing people, but it's just sort of a means to an end.
Right, exactly. And we want to get this work done as quickly as we can. We're out here, the contractors out here. Our main objective is to get in and out as quickly as possible, expedite the work. But as a motorist, you have to understand that there's going to be this necessary slowdown during the construction process. We are working as fast as we can, but ultimately what we're going to end up with is a safer road and hopefully a faster commute for those motorists that are using the actual arterial coming through here. So the work is necessary. We are working as quickly as possible, but in the end, they will be resulted in a better product, I believe.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me.
No problem. Thanks.
We take another break now, and coming up, a look at the helicopter services at Boeing Field 100 years after the first helicopter flight took place, and what are goats doing at Metro's East Base in Bellevue? We'll take a look. Stay with us. Welcome back. It was just about 100 years ago that the first helicopter flight took place. Historians have narrowed it down to between the middle of August and the middle of September in 1907. Helicopters now provide many services that affect our lives every day, from medical to law enforcement to traffic information. And you'll find those services and more at King County International Airport. We may not see them every day, but they are certainly a part of our daily lives. We rely on helicopters for purposes ranging from the mundane, like daily traffic, to the life-saving, like medical flights. They also help keep us safe. Local law enforcement can be at the scene of a crime or an emergency in minutes. In fact, it might be hard to imagine our world without these flying machines. After all, we have been using them in one form or another for the past 100 years. Between August and September in 1907, the first flying machine using rotor blades instead of wings took flight. A century later, that machine is an essential part of how we live. Helicopters are also an essential part of operations at King County International Airport. At the north end of the runway at Classic Helicopter, aspiring pilots learn at an FAA-approved flight school.
For those learning how to fly helicopters, it's a pretty wonderful place to be because it gives you real-life exposure. You really have to know about air traffic. You really have to know about weather. You really have to know about airspace. So the conditions are ideal for those folks that are going to be flying professionally out there in the real world.
Classic has been operating at the airport for about 25 years, and on top of training new pilots, they also perform maintenance, fight forest fires, offer private charters, and assist with various types of construction and load work, meaning they lift stuff. Another helicopter company that began operations at Boeing Field in 1982 is Airlift Northwest. Just as its name suggests, Airlift carries out the medical function of flying helicopters. It's a private air medical operation that has 4 helicopter bases in Olympia, Seattle, Arlington, and Bellingham, and has recorded 55,000 medical trips in the 25 years it's been operating. Airlift Northwest mostly responds to Western Washington calls, but does travel to Eastern and Central Washington and can transport patients to any hospital that has helicopter access. Considering how much faster the trip is by helicopter than it is by car, the helicopter has become invaluable in saving lives.
And they'll call and say, we need you guys. We have a call. We need an airlift helicopter to meet us at a landing zone. So what happens is that at that time the page goes out to the pilot and the 2 flight nurses, because we operate a pediatric specialist and an adult specialist. And what happens is they get the page, the pilot checks the weather, and then what we do is we go off of, our goal is to be off the ground in 10 minutes or less. And to get to South King County, it's going to be about a 10-minute flight for us. We land there, meet the medics, because that's usually who is calling us, our EMS providers. We meet there, we're on the ground for 10 minutes or less, get back, loaded us into the helicopter, and we're back to Harborview. So from the time of call from a South King County flight, we could be back to the emergency department in less than 30 minutes.
For law enforcement, the helicopter is also a crucial tool, especially for King County Sheriff Sergeant Sidney Jackson, who works in the Air Support Unit for the Sheriff's Department. The unit operates 6 helicopters, but Guardian 1, seen here, sees most of the action as it takes to the air nightly for patrols. The Air Support Unit must be ready to respond to an incident anywhere in King County, all 2,126 square miles of land and 180 square miles of water.
Well, our primary mission in the Air Support Unit is to support patrol operations, meaning we support everyday routine patrol for the guys on the ground driving the patrol cars. We give an aerial perspective to many different calls for service. Doesn't have to necessarily be all the hot calls, but the helicopter is particularly useful in pursuits, allowing cars to back off. Helicopter can fly a straight line and provide the coverage. Any perimeter situations, be able to help patrol identify where to place the calls on a perimeter. Canine tracks, when you get the team of the dog and the helicopter together, there's a pretty good chance we're going to catch the bad guy.
So whatever the function, medical, law enforcement, educational, or informational, helicopters are something we rely on heavily as the invention's 100th birthday comes and goes. And King County International Airport and its helicopter tenants have just about every angle in the industry covered. If you've passed by Metro's East Base in Bellevue or the Tukwila Park and Ride lately, you may have seen a peculiar sight. It's yet another example of Metro Transit's dedication to staying green with a little help from some goats. Metro recently hired about 270 of them to take care of overgrown vegetation, saving the emissions and dangerous work that would normally have come from landscaping equipment and clearing steep slopes.
They eat about 3% of their body weight, so you're looking at about 4 or 5 pounds.
They, in this case, are 270 goats. So what are they doing at King County Metro's East Base in Bellevue? They're doing what comes naturally: eating, sleeping, and helping Metro out in the process. Shepherd Craig Madsen and his four-legged crew were hired by Metro to help control vegetation at East Base and also at the Tukwila Park and Ride. Madsen says he gets curious and positive reactions everywhere he takes his herd.
Yeah, people are curious to see the animals. They're fun to watch. The little young ones especially, they like to play and do different things. If there's a rock or something to play on, they'll play King of the Mountain on. So people just like watching them, and they don't see that. They don't get an opportunity to see that many goats in the Park and Ride or in Tukwila or other places around very often.
To keep his herd confined during their charge to find chow, Madsen takes this portable electric fence along with him. So why hire goats? Well, the task of maintaining both sites has been a challenge for Metro crews because of the rough terrain, steep hills, and uneven ground. Those conditions pose the threat of injury to human crews using equipment, but goats have no trouble overcoming that risk.
It works better in some places than others, especially if it's steeper slopes and some of the more difficult access sites, it works real well at. I mean, if it's flat and things like that, it's probably easier to use equipment and things. So yeah, they're a good tool, and just figuring out which areas are the best place for them to be used at.
Furthermore, much of the vegetation around East Base and the Tukwila Park and Ride is just what goats like.
The goat's preference is more for what they call browse or brush and shrubs and broadleaf plants. They'll eat the grass, but it's not their preference. If it's lush and green and growing, they'll eat it real well. But once it gets more mature, they'll eat the shrubs and other stuff before they'll eat any grass. They eat for a while, and then they'll lay down, chew their cud, and once they got that worked through, they'll go out and eat some more.
Well, that's it for this episode. Remember, you can watch anytime you want to on the web. Just visit kingcounty.gov, click on Transportation Today, and then Inside Transportation. Also, please email questions or comments to kctv@metrokc.gov. Well, I hope you'll join us next time for another episode of Inside Transportation. I'm Matt Reichmann. Thanks for watching.
It's like mother, you know?
We pointed out to the last group that Kim and I actually go way back. We met each other 12 years ago when we were both working for KSTW in KSTW? Yeah, that was it, in Tacoma.
He was my photographer and I was his reporter.
And then we hooked up again years later at Como, and then here we are again. So.
And yeah, and our kids know each other really well, so I can tell them stuff.
Okay, everybody ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Inside Transportation. We're talking about the Transit Now proposal to add more Metro Transit bus service in King County. We just heard the county and Department of Transportation outline the proposal. With us now are members of groups who see transit as more than moving people from point. You know, actually, I had some other stuff that I added here, and I maybe didn't send it to you, so I wanted to point out that they're independent of the county and DOT. No, I have it here. So I just need to remember that I wanted to say it.
I can do it in the prompter if you want me to.
You have to get out and then type it in and come back in. Nah.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. Sorry about that, Alan. Let's take another run at it. You ready? All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Inside Transportation. We're talking about the Transit Now proposal to add more Metro Transit bus service in King County. We just heard from the County Department of Transportation and the county. They outlined the proposal. With us now are members of groups who are independent of the county and or DOT who see transit as more than moving people from just point A to point B. I'd like to introduce Rachel Smith from the Transportation Choices Coalition, Barbara Wright from